Good evening, and it's a very warm welcome to you all to this important inaugural lecture. Inaugural lectures mark a moment for academic staff, the point of which, for many of them, it's their major career trajectory. So this is a really important moment for Claire. I'm delighted to be here as Claire has been promoted to Professor of Anatomy here at the Brighton and Sussex Medical School. And there's a bit of a full circle for me as well, because previously Claire and I were at the University of Southampton together and crossed our paths. So it's fantastic to be able to introduce and indeed to close this lecture. And the reason why I'm doing both is because the Dean of Medicine is off with some ghastly virus, not COVID. And the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Sussex has COVID. So I'm sort of the last one standing, or the only healthy one, however you want to see it. Claire started her academic career with an honours degree in anatomical science at the University of Bristol. This was followed by a PhD in anatomy education at the University of Southampton. And subsequently, Claire joined Brighton and Sussex Medical School as a reader and the head of anatomy in 2013. Now, Claire's subsequent career has been a steep trajectory, with over 100 publications and funding focused on education and innovation, an incredibly important area for academic discovery. The majority of her work has clearly been related to highly creative and renowned innovation in anatomy teaching. And the remarkable strand of work that's focused on body donation and the role of cadaveric dissection in the teaching and learning of anatomy in medical education and in other professions. More recently, there have been collaborations which have resulted in the rapid expansion of postgraduate teaching, especially in the area of surgery, an area which the medical school is becoming well known for. In the last year, Claire has also taken over a half-time role as a Deputy Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Education and Innovation in the University of Sussex, a tribute to her innovative thinking about how we help people learn. She's also played a strong role in making a contribution towards the Teaching Excellence Framework submission for the University of Brighton. I won't bore you on that, it's just more bureaucracy. Whilst all these activities are making a huge contribution locally, nationally and internationally, it's actually in the field of public engagement through the media that Claire has made an increasingly powerful and influential contribution. This has been built on a long-standing collaboration and a contribution to Operation Ouch, a children's TV programme which apparently is one of the major influences helping students make the decision about a career in medicine. Although I'm not sure we're supposed to make people go ouch. More recently, and with the same production company, Claire has worked to tell the extraordinary and incredibly courageous story of Toni Crew. Toni and her family are just amazing. Toni donated her body for anatomical dissection and ticked the box for public display. This is the first time this has happened in the UK, and the resulting incredibly moving documentary was a powerful testament of the importance of learning and understanding the journey of cancer. It was filmed and was shown on Monday evening. It's called My Dead Body on Channel 4. If you haven't, I would recommend you watch it. It is deeply impressive. So Claire and the team here, the whole anatomy team, who I know she'll give credit to, were involved in making that. So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you Professor Claire Smith to present her inaugural lecture, The Silent Teacher, Lessons from Dissection. Claire.
Thanks, Deborah. Good evening, everyone, and hopefully you can hear me. I am literally just the floor above you, and I really wanted to start my inaugural lecture here in where everything happens in the anatomy laboratory, and we'll also finish it as well. why this is really important, people say, why would you work in a place where it's cold, bright lights, there's lots of deceased people, but what you're going to get to see is that as soon as there's anyone... Oh no, sound issues. Oh no, didn't want sound issues. Thank you so much. It is so lovely to see you all here. These things always happen with teaching. There's always glitches, and we just always jump through it. The reason for wanting to start upstairs was really about that is where the story started, and I wanted to make sure that I paid tribute to our amazing donors. Sometimes people think that the space upstairs, why would you work in a place that's cold, bright lights, full of deceased people? And you'll soon see, because you're going to get to go up there afterwards if you want to, of course, there's no force to this. It's actually, as soon as there's anything from 5 people onwards, isn't there, really, up to 100 people, the energy changes completely in the laboratory. It becomes a place of questioning, of intrigue, of just immense focus on our donors. And we couldn't do that without our silent teachers. So this was also my opportunity to say thank you to all of the silent teachers that I've ever worked on and will work on going forward. It's really nice that you've all taken time to come out and to see us tonight. I really appreciate that. You might have been out doing some Christmas shopping. I hear there's been a very good documentary on TV this week that you might have wanted to have seen. Sophie, the director, is here, and so you can ask her any questions about it. It's been phenomenal, hasn't it, Sophie? You're all going. Sorry, no, so you're all going to get picked on at some point in a lecture, because that's normally what happens in a teaching session. Thank you as well to Trev's feet in this picture. I hope you've all seen that. We've got to start a little bit about history and recognising that if this obviously was many, many years ago, this would be me standing there. And I don't think I've ever worn a hat in a dissecting room. But these ruffles, where's Dom? Dom, where have you gone? I reckon you could rock the look of these ruffles in the DR. Going forward? Yeah? What we do a lot better than in this famous painting is actually the anatomy here is all wrong. They clearly didn't attend Catherine's musculoskeletal sessions because it's not actually as it should be. And then we move to a little bit about actually what was anatomy like during COVID. We were pretty much like this. Daniel, Bruno and myself, this is how we delivered a lot of teaching during COVID. I was trying to find early pictures. Mum will obviously remember this one. Yes. The other one was me dissecting in about 2000, and you're going to see one of my really early dissections later on in this presentation. One of the things that's really important to me is that I haven't written, thank you Deborah for the hundreds of papers mentioned, I haven't written a single one by myself. It is all teamwork, so it is as well, this lecture is also a chance to recognise the amazing contribution of all the team and the people that I've worked with over the time, so thank you. There are going to be some images of dissection. I hope that's what you've come for and that's what you're hoping. I did warn my friends that there would be audience participation, and there will be some audience participation. So why do people donate their body? Until today, I'm guessing most of you have probably heard about body donation some way, shape or form. Yeah. Do you think, let's have hands up if you think most of your friends or family have heard of body donation? Slightly more maybe, yeah. It's generally not always something that's talked about as a post-death option. Sorry to start the lecture off on death on that note, but death is a taboo subject. It doesn't always get talked about. People may think, oh, you can cremate me, you can bury me, but send me up in a rocket, put me out to sea, donate my body, make me into jewellery. That's not always discussed. We've always thought, and there was a study in 1995 that said it was an altruistic act. But actually, what does that actually really mean? Why do people do that? And I've been really fortunate to work with some amazing individuals. I'm not sure if Tom's in. If Tom's in, I see you. No, not. Thank you to Tom. Tom in psychology, we've worked to really understand why people donate their body. We conducted a survey in 1999 with just under 1,000 potential body donors. And one of the things we were able to work out is that there's probably two types of altruism. One is about medical altruism and actually wanting to give back something for the care that they might have received, wanting to help future people learn and understand the body. And the other type of altruism is about intimate altruism. It's about doing something good for your family, your friends, your feelings. And this ties into this paper about actually what is a good death. And we do think that body donation can form and be part of what a good death might be. There's only two graphs, I promise, in this slide, or in the presentation. Now, I'll let you have a little look and see if there are things that you thought, actually, yeah, I'd expect that. Avoid wasting the body is quite an interesting one. What do we do with this vehicle when we're finished with it? Express gratitude back to the medical profession, we've just talked about. Help medical science I find very interesting because we don't do research that means suddenly we cure cancer or we do something like that. But we do a lot of work that means that actually the medical students here, where are they all? Lovely. Thank you. They've all got their t-shirts on. I should have said the team have got all their scrubs on and the medical students have got their anatomy t-shirts on if you need any of them. Hopefully it's making you be better clinicians. I can see a few clinicians. Rob, I'm going to pick on you because I can see you, lovely. What does that mean to you in A&E?
So I can talk about my experience using a cadaver. So we learn how to do a thoracotomy where you basically someone's been stabbed, and I work in A&E, and you've got to try and open up the heart to try and stop the bleeding. And I've practiced, I've only ever done one in my life, and I've practiced on a cadaver. Whoever, I don't know who it was who donated that body, but that person who donated that body allowed me to practice, and then when I came to do the real thing about 3 years ago, it was successful. And so that is a real life experience of why that cadaver donation helped somebody else's life to be saved.
Thank you, Rob. I'm sorry to put, I haven't seen you in ages, thank you. And that's an excellent example of that. The things that really interested us are actually this idea of a source of comfort to relatives, half people thought, but these ones were completely new and hadn't really been come up before in the literature. The idea of saving relatives' inconvenience. So a decision has been taken out of a relative's hands. They don't need to suddenly go and organise a funeral, choose what flowers to have, what they're going to be, where are they going to be, and then save relatives money. And bearing in mind this was in 2019 when the cost of a funeral was about £5,000. I do wonder if that has changed at all. Last year we probably spent about £40,000 on cremations and things like that. So we spend a lot, the medical school cover every associated cost with body donation. Now why do we do with donors? And if Malcolm asks me this, Deborah's asked me this, Kelly's asked me this from the university's perspective, why do you need a dissecting facility, Claire? Why, with all the virtual reality things you've also got, all the simulation things, why do you still need this? We need this for undergraduate teaching, for postgraduate teaching, for research and for publications and resources. So I'm going to just take us through all of these. there are a trigger warning. There are images in here, hence the little symbol. So please don't take anything out for social media. All the images you see have given consent. All the appropriate consent has been gained. But this is something that we don't feel, unless it's got a science purpose for it to be out on social media, it doesn't need to be. This is what Catherine's PhD is all on, so please do speak to her later if you want to know more. Undergraduate teaching. I was looking for photos of undergraduate teaching showing donors, and I haven't got a single one, because every time Matt and Julie come into the dissecting room to take photos for the prospectus and everything, they're always told don't take any of any donors because we don't want them on the front covers. So students, you have about 9 of you. Yes, Nick?
Yeah, about 9 a table.
9 a table, and you have a donor in your first year that's just your donor.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience to have one donor to ourselves to explore all the anatomy that we're getting taught. We get taught in here, and then we head upstairs, and then we look at that anatomy in real life, and we get to do that for a whole year. So it's great. You can't beat it.
And then in your second year, you get expert prosections. So these are dissections that are done by Camilla and the rest of the team. And this means that they're really, really delicate areas. So maybe going into the face or into the pelvis. And how do you learn on those?
So you get to see the fine anatomy really close up and really well that we just don't have the skills to be able to demonstrate when we're dissecting, because the guys here have years of experience, and to dissect a facial nerve out and see that in real life is such an amazing experience to see that, because for me, I'm a visual and tactile learner, so I learn best when I can see what I'm doing, and that's what I've learned from the anatomy lab.
Thank you. And you have a lot of prep before you go into the anatomy lab. You have lectures from me, and also Anne's here as well. You come in every year, Anne, to tell our students all about your story, don't you? Yeah. Of your mum and dad, and one of them was accepted for body donation and one of them wasn't. So they feel hopefully really ready. But those prosections, I think I've got a mental map in my mind of every single one that's in the chiller cabinets, as Camilla will know. And actually between us, we can actually say to each other things such as, well, I'd really like the one with the falx cerebri on that also shows the brainstem. And you guys know exactly which one that we're talking about. So whilst every donor becomes anonymous to students, we don't actually even need to sometimes use names or numbers as part of that. The next slide is going to show you some dissections. And this is an example of our postgraduate surgical teaching. So we work with freshly deceased individuals that the team will freeze if they need to in time, because suddenly trying to maybe get 9 deceased people ready for a particular day is a little bit of a logistical challenge. And Holly and the team will expertly care for them. They'll work out if they're frozen, how long it takes to get them out of the freezer, and what to do with them. This is an example of one of our Royal College of Surgeons courses, and actually it's exactly as Rob said. We didn't plan this, Rob, but it is absolutely perfect. So all of the donor is gone through in some type of procedure. And some of them are about definitive surgical skills, so they're the essential skills that A&E consultants, surgeons are going to need. And sometimes we're training individuals for the military, so it goes through a simulated kind of, a bomb has gone off, you need to do this, you need to do a clamshell operation, you need to get in, you need to get to the heart, you need to do X and Y. And it's a very, Camilla and Laura and Aidan, it's a very intense few days when they're working on this, isn't it? As they systematically go through. The other thing we do with postgraduate surgical teaching is our surgeons come in and they get to refine the procedures that they're working on. They might know they have a difficult case the next day. They might know that actually they've always thought that that nerve there could be rerouted to X location or something like that, and they need to try it out. So that's something that happens. And we know from our research that this is really beneficial. Moving on to research, it's perfect. Have you ever thought of your body as completely unique? So we might make textbooks like this. Hopefully, students, you know these inside out. But actually, we are not exactly as we are in a textbook. There is so much anatomical variation, and using donors enables students, surgeons to see that variation, and we can research about it. And I've never been able to say to an ethics committee or to my line managers, Claire, what are you going to research next year? Well, actually, it depends on what the donors come in with and actually what I see when we're there. So we've been lucky enough to find examples such as this sternalis muscle, which is only present in 8% of the population. It can be on either side or one side, as in this case. Important to know, for example, is if you were going in there to undertake breast surgery or any work on the chest, if you were trying to cut through there. In an emergency, like Rob would do, and you wouldn't really worry about it, would you? Just go straight through it. We've been fortunate enough to have a look at things such as hyperplasia here within skulls, courses of the hypoglossal nerve. And you're going to get now a chance to see if you've got any variation on your own body. You all look really panicked. Promise it's not that bad. So there's a muscle known as Palmaris longus, and as you can see, its presence varies between sort of 5.5 and 24% of Caucasian populations, and between 4.6 and 26% in Asian populations. It's important when looking at it clinically, individuals with carpal tunnel syndrome and any surgery to the area around the wrist. And you can see it over. And it's this muscle here running down. So I've got a lovely video here that Catherine's made that I'm going to play, and then the medical student helpers are going to come round and help you have a look at it on your own hands. So you just need to push up your sleeves so you can see your wrist.
Hello, so we're going to try and find our Palmaris longus. What you're looking at here is two different hands and two different forearms from two different people. The arm and hand on the left hand side, this one we know has got a Palmaris longus, whereas the one on the right hand side does not. To find your Palmaris longus, what you need to do is bring your thumb and your baby finger or your little finger together, squeeze them, and then raise your wrist up towards you. So raise your hand or your wrist up towards you. You can see on this one, on the left hand side, there is a midline tendon popping up. So it's right running down the center of the wrist. On this left hand side, on this arm on the right hand side here, there isn't, we don't have a Palmaris longus. There's no tendon running centrally down the forearm. You might be able to see a small little raise here of a tendon that's running along here, but it's not central. So that suggests that it's not Palmaris longus, but another tendon that we do have in our forearm, but that is running more towards this thumb side of the wrist, so it's not Palmaris longus. For it to be Palmaris longus, it needs to be running centrally down the wrist, like what we can see here on the left hand side. So again, to find your Palmaris longus, you want to bring your thumb and your baby finger together, squeeze them, and then you're raising your hand and your wrist up towards your face.
Okay, so if you've got your phones to hand, if you can have a look at the QR code, and we'd like you to log, there's two questions. One is to log if you have it on your right hand side, and one is to log if you have it or not on your left hand side. Okay, so that's really interesting that 63% of you in here have it on your right hand side. And this is for your left hand side, if you've not already done it. Amazing. So again, as you can see, quite a bit of variation within the room. It's probably something that's genetic. I'm sure Catherine won't mind. Catherine has it on one side and not on the other side. I don't have it. I think unless Catherine particularly wanted to be a really amazing tree climber on one particular side, it's not affected your life in any way, shape or form. Thank you, Catherine. So one of the things in anatomy that's really important is our ability to understand things in 3 dimension. You've already just done that on yourselves by actually having a look. And one of the things we know from our research is particularly spatial ability is really important. And one of those factors of spatial ability is metric perception, depth perception. And this is the ability to judge distances. We've found that over time, the more you practice, the more work you do, the more expert you become, your ability to judge depth perception increases. So this is important for us, that using donors, having students use touch-mediated perception, so exploring structures with their hands in a real 3-dimensional space, not a screen space, actually enables that depth perception to be developed. And we can test this by doing, fun little things like if that's rotated to that one's rotated, I'll let you guess it. But we know this makes a difference. Sometimes, though, we need to look at structures that are really small. If you're paying attention earlier to the scrolling text, you might have learned that the smallest muscle in the body is the stapedius muscle, which is 1 millimetre long, and it's within the ear. Any student, have you ever seen that muscle, students? No. And please don't examine us on it, Claire, I think is also the next bit that was coming from that. So sometimes we have to use models such as that to actually be able to learn that spatial ability on really fine structures. Apologies for the lack of warning of that, I forgot about that one. So comfortable in a lecture theatre that we teach in all the time, we do forget those. What organ is this? You know, and sounded 100% convinced. Well done if you said heart. It is a heart. This is one of the tasks that students do find. You give them a heart to hold, which if you'd like to come up on our lab tour, you're going to get to see this very heart. Daniel's worked on it to tidy it up a little bit. Working out which parts of it are the ventricles here, going down to a point. Has a little bit of fat around it because it was the patient was on steroids prior to the death. But already working things out, I can see this vein running along here. I know that's dividing where the ventricles are and where the atria are. But I'll have to be able to turn it around and work with it in a way that I know it would sit in a patient. So it would then depend where the ultrasound probe or something else that I was doing or that our medical students are going to be doing. So they have to work from something like this textbook image. And they have to know all of these structures. And one of the pieces of work I did, which I knew you wouldn't want to know about, is we designed the 156 learning outcomes, which became the core syllabus for medicine, for anatomy, that every medical student across the UK uses. And that was a project that took 4 years and a lot of time and energy, but isn't very exciting to tell about in an inaugural. They have to then work out how they see that on a dissection, and this is one of my earliest dissections I've got a photo of. And I'm really proud on here, where's my little pointer gone? Of actually working out. You might be looking at it going, okay, I think I can see some muscle, Claire. Yeah, I can see the heart muscle over the ventricles here. Can you see this lovely artery coming down here? It's the left anterior descending coronary artery coming down here. The right coronary artery coming off here and going down here, giving off the right marginal. These are the right ventricle. We can see the right atria here. Anyone see the left atria? Hopefully you can't. Great answer, great silence. Because it's behind, it's at the back of the heart, it's on the posterior surface. We can see the pulmonary trunk heading off to the lungs, and we can see our beautiful aorta arching up and going around here. And if you look really closely, you'll be able to see on the arch of the aorta, you see these little vessels here. Yeah? The aorta, the massive artery it is, it's so cool. It has its own little arteries supplying it. So arteries supplying an artery, which is lovely. that variation, we've got 3 branches up here, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it's 2 and then branches again, and sometimes it's 4. And students have to move from these types of images to the ultrasound images, and quick ones of you will go, well, actually, Claire, the arteries are the atria are below the ventricles, weren't they, the other way round? Yes, they were, but this is all about where the probe is sending its signals and how it's being interpreted. And Malcolm later on is going to be able to explain a little bit more about how we see these within images. So I thought you might want to do something that we do in the lecture theatre, and it's one of the things that manages sometimes to get me 5-star ratings from students, which is why I thought I'd do it. So we're going to have a look at the blood supply to the brain. This is our aorta, then its branches, and coming up, the brain is so important that it gets 4 arteries going to it to give it its blood supply. And we're going to be looking at these, the left and right vertebral arteries that pass up in your neck, and the right and left common carotid arteries that you can often feel a pulse of in your neck too. So if you haven't, and this is what it looks like on the base of the brain. Any animal or anything that anyone thinks this looks like?
Frog.
Frogs, quite good. Kids, what inflatable thing did you never get to play with because I've nicked it as soon as you won it at a fair?
I was going to say alien, but I don't think that's quite right.
It is the alien. Well done. The alien that's lived in here. I think it looks very much like an alien. So, if you haven't eaten your strawberry laces in front of you, now is time to take your paper and your strawberry lace . I've drawn a drawing and everything. Right, just whilst we play around with that, I'll talk you through it as if we're doing it on the visualizer. So I want you to pinch off 2 little vertebral arteries and lay them as your 2 little legs on your alien. These vertebral arteries are really important, and they head up in our skeleton protected by a little kind of arch, a little circle, so nothing happens to them. But they then join together, so you need to make them into a point so that they're joining, and snap off a little bit more of strawberry lace to make this one the basilar artery, which is sitting over the pons of the brain. This is its body of its alien. Bruno, I'm coming to see what you've done. Oh, see, Bruno's done that very well. Sophie's done that well. Oh, look, you're all amazing at this. You didn't need the visualizer after all. Then, I'd like you to try and do a circle up here. This is the cerebral arterial circle. Used to be known as the Circle of Willis, but we don't like eponyms now because we're trying to work to decolonise our curriculum. So the cerebral arterial circle. And then you need to snap off arteries to come out from it, like its little kind of like crazy eyes, which are the middle cerebral artery. Give it some little arms, the posterior cerebral artery. And then these 2 little antennae going up and forward, the anterior cerebral arteries. And it will look like that. Look at Denise has done amazing. Look, Denise, look at yours, how good yours is. Look behind you, 2 anatomists. Yours is outstanding. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Yay! So it look like that one? Yeah? Fantastic. I've just seen Malcolm eating some. You can eat it, Malcolm. Very well done. Have a look at that, take a photo of it, and then feel free to eat it. They are vegan, vegan sweets. So to change the focus a little bit, one of the things that Deborah mentioned we've been really passionate about doing is opening our doors to a whole range of other people in events like this, in science festivals, because we believe that we've got an amazing set of resources, including the facilities provided by the university, that actually means we can teach other people. And the documentary was really an amazing example of this. And you can see in these photos, you can see Sophie there directing, Bud with his camera, Rachel producing, and Dave doing his sound, all actually working. And it was all not like these bits of sound. His sound always worked. I think he heard every single time I nipped to the loo and everything. So this is a little example of one of those sessions. It does obviously contain dissection images. This is Aidan free talking. So Aidan, can you explain to us what we found today?
So on the anterior abdominal wall, you can actually see some of these nodules, aren't they? Yeah. So, which again, you can see
them on the inside.
Yeah, you can see them on the inside as well. The tumor right there. But what was really interesting, and what we found was actually inside the abdominal cavity. So we did reflect the anterior abdominal wall using the pubis as the hinge, and then we looked at the liver, didn't we? We isolated the liver.
And we looked at the scans beforehand, so we know that the scans where we were expecting to see some of the tumours in the liver. We knew that the liver was enlarged.
Yeah. But we didn't realise it was
so enlarged.
Yeah, it was so enlarged. So it's quite massive. We can't really see much changes externally, but you can see some of those small changes in the parenchyma of the liver, and that's again probably because of the mets inside the liver itself.
This is probably about 30% larger than a
Yeah. I would say about 30% larger than a normal liver.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's
amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we saw in the liver. And then we were looking at the other abdominal viscera, and very interestingly, we found these peritoneal seedings throughout the mesentery of both the small intestine and the large intestine.
And there is hundreds of these. So all of these these are all little tiny tumours that will grow. They would have grown if she'd continued to live, and they are just everywhere, aren't they?
Yeah, interestingly, it's actually gone all the way up to the pelvis. So if you pull out the sigmoid colon slightly up, you can actually see it all the way down to the pelvis. But these were all really small ones, even though they're numerous. But on the right side, we found two big tumours, didn't we, Claire? Yeah. So if it's just for orientation purpose, so you've got the cecum here.
This is the gut going up this way.
Going up that way, and then we found the tumor. So it wasn't within the bowel itself, but it was actually on the wall of the bowel.
And we've separated it, haven't we?
Yeah, we did.
So we can actually see the size of it, and we can examine it more closely.
Yeah.
And we're going to cut into it.
Yeah.
And later on, we will have got that liver, so if you'd like to have a look at it, we can talk you through more details related to that. Now, one of the things that's been a real pleasure to learn and to research as I've gone through my career to date and still want to do loads more is actually working out how students learn in this really unique environment. And that's been everything from students' perceptions, students' motivations to working on donors, to how you take things like this, which is the brachial plexus, all your nerves in the arm. When you were a little tiny baby, your arms grew out this way and they had to rotate and the nerves had to form and divide and everything. How students learn in this way, using things such as 3D printing, working out their engagement. And this has been a fantastic thing to try and do, and by no means we're done or finished on any of this, as COVID completely threw out our ways of learning and working. But there's one particular part that I've been really proud of in a slightly strange way. two parts actually, I forgot about this, but one was the chance to write Gray's Surface Anatomy and Ultrasound. I'm sure you've heard of Gray's Anatomy thanks to the TV series. It ruins our internet searches, doesn't it, teams, for when you're trying to get actual factual things. But this was a great privilege to go to work with our students. Every single image in the book comes from a student, and to map out actually how students are going to be using their surface anatomy. This is a very standard type of thing that a GP would look at, and how they would use that using ultrasound. The other part was sometimes we have to do fun things in anatomy, and this is what I wanted to head towards ending the lecture on, was with my good colleague Scott Border. We wrote this beautiful piece about rhyme and mnemonics in anatomy. And I think probably one of the achievements was in the science journal Anatomical Sciences Education, which is owned by Wiley, and its associated journals, Journal of Anatomy, Clinical Anatomy, etc., etc. They had never had a referencing system for any songs or any rhymes. So when this paper was then accepted, the journal had to actually go away and write a referencing system for how to reference songs. So, and it hasn't been in there since. No one's referenced them since. So we're really pleased that we got Over the Rainbow in there, and Kylie Rae Jepsen as well in a very high scientific journal. And perfect timing. It's really on that note, stop, you don't get to watch that yet, that I wanted to end by making sure that I thanked everyone, the team, past and present. It has always been a journey that has made me jump out of bed in the morning, and I'm ever so proud of my team. So this is the fun bit, because we have a lot of fun. They can come and do it now, they don't have to sit there. Ready?
You are the centre of this. A professor is somebody with passion, who professes their subject, who inspires and enthuses others, who helps to make the relevance of what they study known to the community, known to society. And in that, Claire, you are an absolute exemplar of a professor. So I am absolutely delighted. It's been a fabulous, forget the tech, it always goes wrong. You've adapted, you've got on with it, perfect. So from all of us to you, congratulations on becoming a professor. You are an absolute, as I say, an exemplar of your passion for your subject, and long may that continue. Professor Claire Smith.
Thank you.